Hi,
Okay.
Sophia.
Hi. So this is Alyssa Macias. She is an SLPA here in Arizona. Alyssa, why don't you tell us a little bit about your educational path to becoming an SLPA?
Yes, so I actually went to Estrella Mountain and I did my SLPA through Estrella, which was awesome because I was able to work full time and kind of do my program very slowly. So my whole education has been very slow paced, just because I needed to work full time and make a living. And so I went through Estrella for my SLPA, and then I was able to transfer to ASU for my undergrad. And now I'm going to go to graduate school starting in January to become an SLP.
We're so proud of you and so excited that you're going to join us as an SLP. I will say Alyssa is a very strong SLPA in the way that she has some very good problem solving skills and the ability to think outside of the box and on her feet often. Um, so I know I said to Sophia earlier, but we weren't recording. You currently work with me in the school. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what settings you've worked in overall?
Yes, so I actually first started in a clinic setting. In the clinic, it was run by an OT, so by an occupational therapist, and it was very occupational led. But it was really nice, and I was able to learn a lot through the occupational setting, just because we were able to co-treat, and that's what we do a lot in the school setting that I work in now. So it's very interesting to see the difference between the two settings, between clinic and schools. When you work in a clinic, you really don't get to go outside. And when you're in a school setting, you do get to go outside and play with the kids on the playground sometimes. And in a clinic, I feel like you don't get to do that just because you are seeing clients back to back to back to back. So, I mean, you still do that in a school setting as well, but I feel like the settings are a lot different depending on what you're looking for, especially hour wise too.
I would agree with that a lot. I feel like for me, having worked in the clinic, one thing that stands out to me is that the client comes in, you work with them you have an hour session, right? And like you work with them for 45 minutes, you have a conversation with parent caregiver, you go
Mm-hmm.
back, write your note, and then you're done with that client for the next week, right? Until they
Yeah.
come in again. But in the school, I find that to be incredibly different, right? You too?
Yes, yes. Especially like how you said, you see the client maybe once a week, maybe two times a week, and then you are having that conversation, especially depending on the age level too that you do see them. But you bring them into your little room, your therapy room, and then you are trying to ask them about what they did that day or what they did over the weekend, and that's already 15 minutes of your therapy session. They try to regulate just what they're trying to do, like bringing them in from, say they were at home, they just woke up from a nap or anything like that. So you already wasted 10, 15 minutes of your therapy session, and then you have another 35 minutes, 30 minutes, and then 10 minutes at the end of your session. You want to make sure you're conversating and communicating with mom or dad or whoever's bringing them in to just make sure what you went over for therapy. And at the school settings is completely different, where you really don't speak to mom or dad or guardian or whoever, but you're seeing these kids Monday through Friday, and it's so interesting because you only see them maybe one day a week for therapy, but then you're seeing them throughout the school day for the school week, and you get to see them interact with their friends in their classroom, and it's so fun. I do enjoy the school setting.
The biggest thing I always think about in the school is like the amount of kids that just run up and hug you
Mm-hmm. I'm
as
like,
you're
please
walking
ask.
down the hallway. Let's practice our pragmatic language skills
Mm-hmm.
and ask. But I feel like the other thing in the school that you see too is, and I know you do a lot of it, is like that push-in therapy, right? And we actually were going over our praxia unit right now. So I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about our student in first grade with apraxia, and how you're implementing AAC in such a functional way. I'm thinking about your lesson last week that you did with him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about being in the classroom and how I think you have a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, so pushing into the classroom and working with his AAC device, it's very fun, but we're also learning how to use it appropriately because, again, he's in first grade and he has all his friends around him and he wants to obviously tell jokes, but we're learning about math. And so we have to understand like, okay, we have to use our device very appropriately and we can try to find our numbers through our AAC device, but we can tell our jokes later when it's free play, but it's very fun to navigate through that AAC device, especially when you have a student that is very aware and knows how to navigate through it. So it's very fun.
I find it to be fun too. I enjoy programming the jokes into his device that you have to teach him when to use.
Yeah, I'm like, oh,
Um,
dang it. It's her fault.
so talking about working in the clinic, working in the schools, I find both to be really interesting, right? Like those big moments where in the school you get to see a little bit more of the whole student, I feel like. And then in the clinic, you see a little bit more of just their speech and language skills within your room. And they provide different opportunities to work on different things. So I find that to be really fun. I'm going to make sure to also post a link about all the information about becoming an SLPA. So the state licensure and then also the national licensure information. Lisa, I know that you are state certified, but not nationally certified. And I know that you're going to grad school. So I feel like for you, it didn't make as much sense. But for somebody who is staying as an SLPA for an extended period of time, that national certification sounds really interesting to me. And I know we talked about it as something that just is intriguing.
Yeah, I think it would be very rewarding also too for somebody who is just wanting to just be an SLPA. Why not get that cert and be a certified SLPA just to even have that on your resume? Why not?
Yeah, I think it's awesome that it's available now. It was
Mhm.
not available when I was an SLPA, but it makes me really excited about the future of speech language pathology assistants too. So speaking about being an SLPA, fun question because I don't know the answer to this one for you. What is your favorite area to work on, right? So this class is all about phonology, articulation, speech sounds, but there's other areas that we work on as speech language pathologists and SLPAs.
Yes. So, I would say speech disorders right now would probably be my favorite. And I do thank you for that. Just because having the student that we do have that just changed my perspective on everything and just working with him, who has a phonological disorder, and just trying to navigate on what he really has and just trying to figure out what I can do more for him and working with him every single day is a challenge. And even though when I say it's a challenge, it's a good challenge because I am learning so much from him. Um, and so I would say phonological disorder is going to be my all-time favorite right now.
I definitely see you get very excited after working with he is our fifth grader. Is he sixth
Sixth
grader?
grader. I've been
Oh
working
my
with him
goodness.
since third grade. And so
And
I know
that's
I was speaking with our other SLP that was in our office today, and I was speaking with her about him, and we were trying to figure out. We don't think it's apraxia, but we think it might be like a motor disorder or like inconsistency. I'm not sure, but something along those lines. And it's so interesting. And again, it's rewarding because in third grade, we wouldn't be able to have conversations with them. And then now having conversations and being able to understand that he found a kitten in a bush, and he's keeping it. And so it's so exciting to like actually have that conversation, understand that's what he's saying, and he's not fronting anymore. So exciting.
yeah. Yeah, because in third grade, he came to us and his speech, the kindest way, was a mess. He had such a hard time, and he had a hard time with hearing the difference, the phonological awareness, the production of sounds, and then applying it.
Just
He
making
had,
vowels, not no
yeah.
consonants at all.
and he's not always consistent in his errors, but then he's not always inconsistent with his errors, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when you first started working with him, it was such a maybe a lesson in patience.
Pulling teeth.
Because at first there was so much frustration between both of you until you both learned each other. And I feel like that's a great comment of like how you really have to build that rapport with a student or with a client in order for them to trust you sometimes too. And I feel like that's what you had to do when you saw him every day for 15 minutes every day, right? You
Yeah.
built that trust.
Yeah, building that trust and telling him like we're not playing a game today. I understand speech is fun, but we're not playing a game today. We are working. So
Hmm. And
it's very rewarding, I would say. Even though it is very challenging at times, it's very rewarding to know like we did that together.
yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like that's the favorite part of the job, huh?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That the teacher coming up to us at like the beginning of the year and she was like, I've known him for a few years and like I understood him today. It was just, it was beautiful. So I can definitely see how that's one of the favorite. Any other favorite things about the job?
I would say, um, especially working at a school, I love working at a school and working from like a preschool program and then seeing them go like K through eighth. I love being able to work with them in preschool and then now knowing them like in second and third grade and being seeing their speech develop so much. And now that they're no longer in speech therapy and seeing how much they have um, just made so much progress, that's another rewarding thing that makes me love my job so much more and love
Yeah.
this
And
field.
hmm I would agree. And I think this location is the first time that I've stayed at one campus for this long, right? And I know you had the preschool program. We're at Glendale Elementary School District right now. So you had the preschool program first, and then you moved over to our elementary school, and you saw a lot of both. Um, so yeah, it is. It's so interesting, and to see. We had one student graduate last year, and we sat there crying
Yeah.
because we had worked with him for 4 years.
Hmm.
It was just so sad. Now we're happy.
Yeah. I'm
But it's
like, is there anything
amazing.
else that we can work on? Because I don't want him to
Yes. What do you find to be like the most challenging thing about the job?
um, the most challenging about the job. It's a very tough question. I would say the most challenging would have to be,
I
um,
feel like there's times the behaviors that
yeah,
can be hard.
I would say the behaviors would be most challenging for sure, but I would also say like when you're providing a lot of like resources and feedbacks to your teachers or your EAs, and just for a student that you want to succeed in speech, especially like in the classrooms for like their accommodations and stuff, and then there's no follow through in the classrooms and you
Hmm.
just don't see any progress at all. So I would say that's probably another challenging aspect about the job.
Definitely, yeah, that like overwhelmed teacher who's trying to balance doing all of these things that we're asking them to do and then the requirements and accommodating five other
Yeah.
students. It's so hard
Yeah.
sometimes. And
And
it's hard for
especially
them and then it's hard for us too.
yeah, and especially I would say not even in like a school setting either. I would say even if you're working in a clinic, and what's challenging about the job working in a clinic is that you're giving these parents all of these resources or feedbacks on like how they can do therapy at home, and again there's no follow through, so there's all you can do is try, and they don't do it at home. There's nothing else you can really do besides do your job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just do our job to the best that we can every day, which I love. Thinking about the clinic again, I think the interesting thing that we have is that we work together 5 days a week, right? So I will see you. It's weird when one of us are off for a day because we don't see each other for a day.
Mhm.
But in the clinic, that wasn't the case for you. And I know I also supervise assistants in the clinic, so I have weekly conversations with them and monthly meetings. But it's a little bit different, right? That like independence level.
Yeah.
And even at the school, sometimes you'll be by yourself more often. And like state licensure definitely mandates different levels of supervision based on experience and time working with a supervisor, and there are requirements. But understanding those requirements as an SLPA, I think, is really important. So then you can advocate for yourself, right? Um, I think that's just a great point to bring up overall is like, as an SLPA, you should be supervised.
You should. You should be supervised for sure. And I did work for a clinic where my supervisor wasn't there. So then when she was there, it was nice to like have that feedback and that reassurance. But then we would do like teletherapy and she would kind of supervise in that way if I had any questions about like a difficult client. But it is nice to have your supervisor there just so you have that reassurance. Or if you have a client that is a little tricky and you're like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing with this student, you're kind of just I hate to say free balling it, but you're free balling it basically,
Yeah.
it's
Until you learn
hard.
and until you develop that rapport and you understand exactly how that student ticks, right? It can be really hard. And I think that's a great question when you're interviewing for a job to have is like, what does supervision look like here? What does it look like to work here? Like we talked about in the clinic, you could have 10-hour days, you can have 7-hour days, you can have, 4-hour days.
Yeah.
um,
And
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 then
a good question too, sorry to cut you off, but a good question too would be how often do your SLPs like stay in the clinic? Because we have another SLP. I have a good friend who's an SLPA, and poor thing, she had like seven SLPAs, sorry, seven SLPs throughout her rotation in that clinic because they just weren't staying. So it's a good
yeah.
question to ask, like how often are your SLPs actually staying? Because sometimes they don't.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's so important that supervision piece, especially when you're starting, like all
Yeah.
throughout your career as an SLPA, it's important, but I feel like starting and really understanding what that supervision piece looks like is so helpful at the beginning. Yeah. Uh, Favorite activity to do with kids? Do you have one?
Oh, my favorite activity. I mean, the kids really love to go for Pop the Pirate because that scares me, but
You
um,
scream every time.
I scream every time. But if I'm doing like articulation, I really like to do like memory with them with articulation. They tend to really like that. So finding like like if you're working on like S blends and you pick out like 10 different S blend cards and then you're playing like the memory game with that. That's really
Hmm.
fun. Or if you're playing or if the student is doing like SH for their Arctic, then doing like Go Fish. That's a really fun one. I would say those three would be like my top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do a great job of making sure when you're doing articulation therapy to not only do like the target words, but also an activity with it that
Mhm.
applies their sounds, right? We do have to drill, but also we need to make this very functional at the same time. And I think that's so important the way that you do that. Compliment you, you do it well.
Thank
um, Sophia, do you have any questions? Sorry to put you on the hot seat.
I actually do have a couple questions. You mentioned
Yes.
you mentioned you went to ASU. I'm planning on starting my transfer in like the summer. How was your experience?
My experience was great. It was an online program. I absolutely loved it. Like I said, everything was very slow pace because I was able to work full time. Um, I enjoyed it a lot. Everything was kind of listed how I needed it to. I was able to add my own classes. I really didn't speak to like my advisors as much as like I really thought I needed to. I was able to add my classes. If I had any questions, they were there to communicate with me as much as I needed. It was very simple. I feel like you shouldn't have any problems kind of like navigating through their system. They use Canvas just like Australia does. So I think you should be fine. Very
Okay.
easy.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Mhm.
And so right now, I'm planning on transferring, but I've been doing kind of some shadowing and I've been trying to find some shadows in my area. Is there anything else that like you can do as a student with like no certification besides shadows?
Um, Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't. I think continuing to volunteer through like summer camps is a great idea, just so you can kind of get that experience would be really good, especially during the summer camps. And then I know during like fall camps or winter camps, I think that's a good idea for like volunteer work. Or just even like reaching out to different clinics and seeing if you can kind of even shadowing like what you're doing now would be a good idea too.
I love the
Yeah,
point of volunteering.
Mhm.
yeah, I actually volunteer right now at one of the hospitals in my area because I got a little interested in like the medical side of speech. And I actually started college as a nursing major. So I kind of like the medical side. I'm also working with kids. So I got kind of into maybe looking into like the medical side and hospital stuff.
That's awesome.
Have you worked in any other settings, like more besides like clinics? Have you worked in like any medical settings or done anything like in the medical side?
I mean, I have. I worked at like an optometrist office, so that was very like interesting. I mean, I loved it because I mean, I've seen so much with like the eyes. And we had like an ophthalmologist that would come into like our clinic as well. So like that was very cool. But that would probably be like my only like medical setting that I actually worked in. I never worked in any like ear, nose, and throat, nothing like that when it came to like your speech side. But when it comes to medical, your eyes, that's the only thing I got.
Yeah, that's really cool though. I think that's all my questions. I don't really have anything else at the moment.
I think also, Alyssa, you're going to have the opportunity in grad school for an externship to be in a hospital, right? I know I had an externship rotation in the hospital.
Yes, I should be able to have my externship for like the medical settings for the hospital, obviously the school settings for elementary, and then a like a senior setting as well.
Hmm. Yeah, which is I think that's a really cool part about grad school. I feel like it opens up a few more doors towards like that medical, Sophia. And I don't know too much about SLPAs working in the medical area. So it would be something really interesting to look into, especially if you're interested in it. And then maybe that is your motivating factor towards going towards grad school for becoming an SLP. I know it was for me, and then I ended up in education, and I've really been enjoying it.
But what will be really neat is that since you do have that experience of like volunteering and shadowing in that medical side, is that maybe there will be more interested in allowing you to do like more feeding therapy because as an SLPA, you will be allowed to do feeding therapy.
So true. Feeding therapy is a great point.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really cool because I've been kind of like interested in maybe the medical side, but also working with kids. So I've been kind of on both, and maybe I guess I'll figure it out later when I decide is something that I really enjoy.
I would definitely encourage you to try everything too, right? Like you don't know what you're going to love until you do it. I didn't think like childhood apraxia speech is one of my favorite things. I never would have guessed that it would have been, right? Um, I don't know, Alyssa, did you find yourself like super interested in phonology when you were in school?
No, not at all. I didn't even think I would have the patience for phonology at all. So no, not at all.
It's fun. It's really
Yeah.
nice to be able to touch all these different areas and play with them to find what excites you because you don't know what it's going to be, which is really fun. So
And I also think like that certain kid is going to change your mind about something, you're going to have that stubborn kid that's going to just pull your heartstrings and then you're going to
mhm.
absolutely love them in the end and you're just going to it's going to just change your career path and like what you're going to be more like most interested in.
I love that. I love that as our ending portion of this too. Thank you so much for taking your time to talk to us today, Alyssa and
You're
Sophia.
welcome.
Thank you for being here. If anyone has some questions about becoming an SLPA, I'm available to answer them and I can always forward them to Alyssa. I can get you her email address for her to talk to you as well. I know for myself, I started as an SLPA and I think it's one of the best decisions I made because it really allowed me to be confident when I was going to grad school in the fact that this is what I wanted to do. And I think that's really amazing that I had that. And I think when I retire, I want to be an SLPA again. We've talked about
Yeah.
that a few times. Like being an SLPA is such a great spot because you get to make such a large impact on a child's life and or on a client's life overall. And that's the most beautiful thing about our job overall. So thank you again, Alyssa. Thank you, Sophia, for being here.